After another week of surging crime and anarchy across America, President Trump tearing into Democrat-run cities and vowing to stop leftist mobs.
These cities, it's like living in hell. Chicago's an example. It's like worse than Afghanistan. They're anarchists. The big thing they want is they want to really destabilize our country, and we don't let them. They've created bedlam. They've destroyed very important things. I mean, you're also talking about statues of George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. They'd like to get Jesus. We're going to get tougher and tougher. And at some point, there's going to be retribution, because there has to be. These people are vandals, but they're agitators, but they're terrorists in a sense.
The president isn't the only one fed up with what we've been seeing. A Chicago activist calling out Black Lives Matter for not focusing enough on the gun violence plaguing his community.
The entire nation should be outraged when a 3-year-old is executed on the streets of Chicago, and a 13-year-old young girl was killed on the west side of Chicago as well. It makes no sense to me if we continue to stand up against the system, but we will not stand up in our own neighborhood.
Meanwhile, Sleepy Joe Biden under fire from the left for not embracing the radical defund the police movement. Political insiders are worried the Democrat base will reject Biden if he doesn't get on board. All right, Greg, what did you think about the president using the phrase terrorists when talking about the agitators and the looters?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think words are enough anymore. I think that there needs to be some kind of action, and I'm not sure what it is, but what I find interesting is the gun violence in Chicago is a reality. What you're seeing going on in America is a racial hysteria. So why is one gaining attention and the other isn't? And I believe that the worst thing a black community can do as a whole is take advice from coddled, white, over-caffeinated, over-educated, under-experienced, left-wing individuals. Because look at the consequences. The black-on-black crime or the gang violence and the gun violence is ignored, but everybody's running around tearing down statues. So I want to end the race war that we seem to be experiencing today. I'm going to blow your mind with this, okay? There are more differences and conflict within whites than there are between whites and blacks. There are more conflicts and differences between whites than there are between whites and blacks. When you look at those pasty white wimps out there running around vandalizing and destroying property, I realize that I have absolutely nothing in common with these laughable losers. And in fact, when anybody looks at the TV, they realize they have nothing in common as a white person with these failures. So it's insulting to me, and it should be insulting to every white person, that you think that race binds us. It doesn't bind us. I have more in common with black winners than white losers. And that's the truth of all human beings. What ties us together is achievement and not grievance. So white winners and black winners are on the same side, and stay away from the white losers, because they are poisoning the minds of everybody. That will end racism if all the winners of every race and color join together and laugh at the losers.
Yeah, I like that idea. Juan Williams, we talked about it yesterday. BET founder saying that a lot of black Americans just laugh at these, as Greg would say, pasty white losers tearing down statues and canceling TV shows because they think, that doesn't mean much.
Well, I'm here to defend my white brothers. This is really wild. Look, I think what's going on here is President Trump is desperate. His poll numbers have cratered. And when he was asked last night on Sean Hannity's town hall meeting, what's coming next? What's your message? What's your agenda? He really didn't have much to say. He says he's experienced, he's great, everything will be great. So what he does, Jesse, is he takes a few instances of looting or bad behavior and he blows it up. Suddenly, cities are war zones. Afghanistan. Suddenly, these people are terrorists. They're so powerful. They're threatening our social fabric. I mean, the reality is that his messaging
Well, Juan, I
is
mean, I think if you
just
lived
not
in
working.
Minneapolis,
Let me-
Minnesota, you'd probably agree that it did
No,
look like a
let me
war
just
zone
say
because
something.
everything's on fire and it cost $1 billion in damage.
Now, look, you can keep showing the same footage again and again and again. But let me just say,
'Cause it's real.
Don't trust me on this. Don't trust me. Listen to the Wall Street Journal. In their lead editorial this morning, they said Trump is headed for a historic loss as millions of Americans are close to saying that they can't risk 4 more years of this. They can't stand it. They're talking about suburbanites. They're talking about women. They're even talking about seniors abandoning Trump. And I think that's why he's engaged in this kind of horrible imagery and language, because he doesn't have a message.
He's not killing people in
Okay, well, I
Chicago.
think-
He's not looting, Juan. These things are actually real. They're not fantasies. True, he could do a better job. He could do a better job facing these problems. We agree with that. But you can't lay those problems on him as somehow he's conjuring this stuff up in order to win an election. This stuff is real. People are suffering, Juan. They're suffering in Chicago. They're suffering in Minneapolis. They're suffering in New York. They're suffering in Atlanta. They're suffering in Dallas. They're suffering in California. And you go, isolated incidents? Wake up, Juan. You got to wake up to this and start helping your party face the truth.
Well, I think the truth is we've had black-on-black crime in this country for a long time, and I think the incumbent is Donald Trump. If he was about healing, reconciliation, if he was doing something to deal with those problems, maybe he'd have a better case. Maybe he'd have something to say about bringing Americans together. But he doesn't have anything
Okay,
to
let's
say,
move it
so he's
to
back
Emily
to
because the
American
president
carnage
has
and back
pushed
to
police
Afghanistan.
reform and the Democrats rejected it, and he's offered them to help with the National Guard,
Oh,
and then
stop.
you guys attacked him for being
Good
too
boy.
brutal. All right, Emily, what did you think about Greg's idea about the winners getting together against the losers? Did that provoke thought in your mind?
Het leven is mooier als je kunt genieten van de simpele dingen. Om eerlijk te zijn, met de mensen die je het dierbaarst zijn en een geweldige olijfolie die je eten nog lekkerder maakt, heb je al alles wat je nodig hebt. Bertolli. Het recept is simpel.
In your mind?
Yeah, I'd like to be on the winning team, as always. I'll weigh in, though, on this larger conversation. This is absolutely the Democrats blaming America for the problems that they've caused. The reason that they want to make it about federal reform or federal action is because it makes it the country's problem, not theirs. But the country didn't cause these problems. Their policies did. So when we talk about Chicago and the fact that this month they had the most violent and deadly weekend and day in their 60 years of keeping track of violence, that is the predictable result to the multi-factor rot under Democratic policies. Horrible public schools and excessive poverty, the inability to break out of dependency program cycles, the food insecurity, all of those things. That is because of Democratic policy, and it has festered all of those factors under the decisions that these Democratic local and state leaders have been making. And when they sit around and say, oh, America needs to change, it's because they are deflecting away from the fact that their policies need to change. You guys know I'm a Californian. I was in junior high in the Richmond Public Unified School District in 1990 when in the middle of the year, it went bankrupt. And you know what happened after that? The predominantly black city of Richmond had that credit rating affected because of the bankruptcy. And the entire school district changed its name because of that. And that kind of systemic rot, that's the tip of the iceberg of Democratic policy rot. But at that time, that's one school district that got bailed out by already bankrupt California. Now every year, there's about 50. That is the rot I'm talking about, and it's Democratic policies.
So, Dana, how does the president match up against Democrat mayors and governors? It's the similar thing to what we had with COVID-19. We're kind of brawling with Cuomo and stuff, and now he's brawling with Democrat mayors and governors over the riots and the chaos. Does that work for him politically, in your opinion?
Well, with some people, yes. But let's take Michigan for an example. Obviously, he had a little bit of a tussle with the governor there, Governor Whitmer. She was not necessarily covered in glory herself. But recently, if you see the feedback from Michiganders, a significant portion of them felt that the president was singling them out and being mean to them for political reasons rather than on the merits. I'm not saying that that's true. I'm just saying that's how they felt. So I don't know politically if that's necessarily working. But one thing that the president can do, and he's shown he's willing to do this before. He can convene a meeting. He's really good at that. And he's not ideological. So he's like, he'll meet with anybody. He'll listen. So instead of, I mean, I think he should call out the local governments for not doing enough. But I also feel like that call out should come with some reaching out. And what if he called up Mayor Lightfoot and said, you got a problem? I'm here to help. What do you need from me? How can I help you?
Yeah.
I asked you, what do you have to, in 2016, I said, what do you have to lose? Here I am. I'm here. We're willing to spend money. Look at all the money. We're spending lots of money on coronavirus response. I'm willing to help you on the security front. I think the people of Chicago deserve better. They need to be protected and safe. And if you need federal government help, I'm here to help you. What would it take? And if she does not take him up on it, then you can go more political. That's just an idea.